Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Ian Watts. Hi, Ian.
Hello, Adi. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so glad to have you here on this podcast because we're going to have a great conversation about the key aspect of a business. So we are all about processes, but I always say it's a people problem, process problem, or both. So you deal with the people aspect of it, which is always a great conversation because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that is where it hits them. It's the personnel part.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I am tremendously excited to join and look forward to having a rich dialogue.
I love that. That's great. So let me first of all start by introducing you. So you are an accomplished author, speaker, and go-to expert on workforce transformation. You scaled HR systems, recruited and retained hundreds of team members, and transformed leaders in over 30 industries from Middle America to the Middle East. A lot of middle there between those. So as the founder of SB Dream Coach and Employee Success Group, you have shared stages with renowned speakers like E.T., the hip hop preacher, and you have been featured on Fox News in Detroit and PBS also in Detroit because you're from Michigan. And leveraging your work as a servant leader for over 2 decades, you're on a mission to build businesses that bless the world. That's a beautiful, beautiful mission.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it is much more than a tagline. It is a deep conviction that I hold.
So tell us about that. Tell us about that conviction of build businesses that bless the world. What's your vision?
Well, because I know that our time is going to be brief, I will give some context that I think will add a little bit more color to how that was crystallized. So I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit. And in many ways, my story is somewhat familiar to a lot of boys and girls that grow up in urban areas in that my mother, my brother, and I lived on welfare. My father was in prison. So as you can imagine, I wanted to get as far and as fast away from that reality as possible. And I saw entrepreneurship as a way out. And I thought that the only path for me was to become a big success. And I wanted to become a millionaire. And it wasn't just enough to become a millionaire. I wanted to become a millionaire by the age of 30. Well, I actually achieved my goal by the age of 26, but the bottom fell out of my first business. And you know all too well the reason why, because it was too heavily dependent upon me. And it was also too heavily dependent upon debt. So I did not have the type of systems in place that I needed. But it was through that experience that I really crystallized what my mission is. Because while I was in my first foray into entrepreneurship, I was looking for mentorship. And for whatever reason, it did not work out. So the reason I even began coaching is because I didn't want people to have to wrestle with having the bottom fall out like I did. So I wanted to be what I didn't see, but I also discovered something that was really critical is that all of the stuff and the things that I was shooting for that I thought would make me happy, that I thought would fulfill me, I realized that it didn't. And so what I realized is that building businesses isn't the problem, but I had to do it in the context of my Christian worldview. I have to do it for God's glory. So that's where building businesses to bless the world came from. So for me, business is simply a tool, not for me to keep score, but business is an opportunity for me to impact not just the people that I serve with products or services, but it's not a significant opportunity to impact the people who work there 8, 9, 10, 12 hours per day. So that's where that came from.
That's beautiful. And and your story is very touching because you could have gone the other way, but your drive and your purpose to improve yourself and improve others is very, very touching and it's a great story. It's very inspirational because,
Thank you.
yeah, and you're using it also business for a higher purpose. And to your point, you can choose the games you play in life. You can play the criminal game. You can play the doing nothing game, the welfare game. You can play the I'm going to make it anyway game. And that's what you chose. So the enjoyment is also the enjoyment of doing it and accomplishing the purpose and accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish. Wouldn't you say so?
I would 100% agree. And I would even, if you will allow me to add more nuance to
Please.
what you've so appropriately stated, you can play the I'm going to get it and get after it game. And I think you have to have grit if you're going to succeed in any area. But the why that's driving that is really important because I'm going to get after it because I want a whole lot of toys. I want stuff and things that ultimately may satiate you, but never really satisfy. Or I'm going to get after it. And it's not just for me. Yes, I can enjoy some of the fruits of it, but my greatest success is my succession, what comes after me. So I'm blessed so that I can be a blessing. So for me, business in many ways, like I said, it's just a tool to be able to impact people's lives.
It's beautiful. Ian, how do you help people? What do you do? Give us some examples of how do you help other entrepreneurs?
Sure, sure. Well, the through line, what I've been doing for the past few decades is helping people with, and you'll appreciate this, marketing, systems, and innovation. But because I wanted to have a greater impact, probably about 2.5 years ago, I made the decision that I was going to start serving larger audiences. And so now, in launching my HR consulting company, I help with three things. How do I help you massively enhance engagement? How do I drastically improve performance? And how do we get your best people to stay, retention? So I do that and I created, again, you'll appreciate this. No matter what you do, you have to have a systematic approach. If you're going to do anything that's sustainable, and especially if you're going to try to have it scale, you need to ensure that you have a specific process that's repeatable, that you can train and develop others on, that they can tweak. There's freedom within parameters, but we need a set of guardrails and a set of chronological written step-by-step instructions or systems for all of the key areas. So I have a systematic approach for training and developing your employees so that them staying is the bare minimum that they would do. They want to give you all that they can. And in addition to that, perform at a higher level.
Wow. Ian, what are the key components for good engagement? What would you say?
You know, let me first preface by saying we have to treat people like human beings and not human doings. I think the mistake that so many people make is not viewing people as their greatest asset. Now, I get it. I've been an entrepreneur for a great number of years, so I understand that the first goal of entrepreneurship is to get to break even. And when you're starting to generate some revenue beyond break even, it feels like for lack of better terms, it can feel like a burden when you have to bring people on. But even that language is not the appropriate language saying, I have to bring someone on. No, I get to bring someone on so that not only can my business grow, but I can deeply impact the people. So I would say that as a preface, but I think the real key to engagement is to create a deep sense of reciprocity among the people that you are working with. When you have been so instrumental in transforming the lives of the people that you work with, well, let me take a step back. For your audience, think about this. Either you've had this or you wanted it. Think about a time that you had blown it and the bottom had fallen out and you didn't know how you were going to make it. But there was someone there who was there to dust you off and to help pick up the pieces, who encouraged you to keep moving forward. If you didn't have that, I know most of us yearned for that. Now imagine if there's anything you wouldn't do to try to be a blessing for that person because of how instrumental they were in your life and in my life. So I think the key to having high engagement is not only treating people like people, but being such a blessing to them, but they're just overflowing with the desire to not only stay, that's the bare minimum bar, but I want to give you everything that I can, because here's what we know. Salary and benefits can bring people in, but it's culture that gets them to stay. You can buy a hand for a season, but you have to win a heart. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are going to get to the bottom of what is it that really drives engagement, how about you be so transformative in the lives of your people over and above and beyond what their specific position is, or even positions that they may aspire to, but you are helping them reframe how they even see this job, because when I come here, my life is completely different. So I created what's called the AX method. And the A in the AX method to create this deep sense of reciprocity and engagement stands for aspirations, helping your people achieve their personal goals and dreams over and above and beyond anything that they may aspire to within the company. The C in
Give
the
an
AX
example
method.
of, I mean, I understand the philosophy and I agree with that because what you're creating here is you're creating not just a place where, okay, I have to wake up in the morning and I have to go work, but I really looking forward to it because that is where I am going to also experience personal growth. So let's give our listeners some actual tools that they can do, they can apply in order to create that aspiration. So how do you do that?
Sure. Here's a very simple thing that the audience can do immediately that will massively drive engagement if it's done with sincerity and intentionality. How about you take each and every one of your people out individually and simply ask them, what are your personal goals and dreams? Not what do you aspire to within the company? That's great. That's a separate conversation altogether. But what are your personal goals and dreams? And one simple thing you can do is based upon that goal and that dream, you schedule it as the leader into your calendar to spend dedicated time wrestling with a resource that you can provide for them, be it a book that you can help to encourage them to move them further faster, or let's just say you don't have the budget at all. I'm totally fine. I know we may be dealing with a lot of early stage entrepreneurs. How about you just invest the time? You invest 2 to 3 hours searching on YouTube where you can find a wealth of the world's information saying, you know what, based upon what you shared with me when we met, I think this would be a great resource for you. Check out these few videos. And perhaps if you're open to it, maybe you're not, but if you're open to it, just as a practical thing, I'd love to not only encourage you, but I'd love if you will allow me to hold you accountable to your own personal goals and dreams, because I care about you more than just what you can do for me. I care about you as a person. So maybe once a quarter, we can schedule a time just to check in. Hey, have you moved that thing forward? Tell me what the plan is. Did you execute on the plan? If you didn't execute on the plan, why not? And what are we going to do differently? Just tremendously practical things. But if you I'm turning around here to point to my door. That door has 3 little hinges on it, but those small little hinges swing that really, really big door. So it doesn't have to be anything big. It's the small things, but over a long period of time that can make all of the difference. And if you will allow, just so that I can complete the thought, the C in the ACTS method stands for calling, helping people discover and demonstrate what they're uniquely called to do. The T stands for transformation, and then the S stands for support. So I'll pause there because I know that that was probably a mouthful.
That was great. So that is something so okay, but that's a good segue to if our listeners, our listeners are fast growing companies that are lacking consistency. They are growing fast, they need systems, they're implementing systems, or they're about to, they're looking at selling, they're looking at exiting. We have a variety of entrepreneurs that are listening to us.
Sure.
If they want to know more and they want to learn more from you and they want to maybe read your books or reach out to you, how can they find out more about your methodology?
Sure. So, 2 places. You can check out employeesuccesscompany.com. That's my website, employeesuccesscompany.com. And on social, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can check me out, Ian M. Watts on LinkedIn.
Great. And I encourage our listeners to do that because, Ian, your methodology or the way that you look at things is very unique, but it's very caring. It's looking at the person as a whole and making sure that the environment that they are operating in is a supportive environment. So you have that reciprocity. I can totally see that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It is my intent to evangelize this methodology worldwide so that people's lives can be transformed on a global scale.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need that support from one another in order to create that group that is very nurturing to the individual, but also for the group. So I think it's very well done on what you're doing and on being on a mission to do that.
Thank you. And if I could just share, I know that our time is drawing to a close. This is not just HR fluff or just soft skills that we're helping people develop. If you look at what Gallup says, companies that are more engaged are 20% more profitable.
That's right.
Individual employees that feel like their people care for them as an individual, not just as a worker, are 3.5 times more likely to be engaged. So engagement equals EBITDA. So the more engaged your people are, there's a direct correlation with your bottom line.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes total sense. Well, Ian, I think this was a rich conversation. We definitely dug into and got some things to the surface that is very helpful for our listeners. So thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It most certainly has been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.